The hospital said they couldn't keep me any longer just for recovery, so my 4 children promised they would take turns caring for me. 15 days later, the nurse told me I was being discharged. I called an Uber myself. My name is Kimberly, 72 years old, a widow. They thought I had nothing left. They had no idea what I had quietly kept all along. I was never the kind of person who complained. I raised 4 children, Richard, Lucy, Mark, and my youngest, Brian, with the belief that God helps those who help themselves. My husband Albert used to say I had the soul of a manager. While he ran our small mechanical workshop, I kept the books, tracked every expense, and recorded every dollar we earned from the 3 rental apartments we had saved up to buy back in the 80s. "They're old houses, Kimberly," he would say, "but they're our safety net." When the doctor told me I needed hip surgery, it felt like the world was collapsing. "This is a major operation, Mrs. Kimberly," he said. "Recovery will take time. You'll need someone by your side for several weeks." I called my children over for Sunday lunch. The smell of roasted chicken and potatoes filled the kitchen, the dish they used to call the best in the world. Sitting at the same table where they grew up, I broke the news. Their reactions came immediately. "Don't worry, Mom," said Richard, my oldest, an engineer. "We'll take turns staying with you." Lucy, my only daughter, held my hand. "I'll be with you the first few days. That's when you'll need me most." "I'll come midweek," added Mark, my consultant son, "and I'll visit at the weekend," said Brian from another city, his tone confident. "We'll take care of everything, Mom. You'll never be alone." Tears of relief filled my eyes. What I feared wasn't the anesthesia, it was the loneliness. But my children had promised. I went into the hospital at peace. The surgery, I went well. I woke up in pain, hoping to see a familiar face. But on the first day, no one came. The chair beside my bed stayed empty. "They're probably organizing their schedules," I told myself. On the second day, still no one. I called Lucy. The phone rang endlessly before going to voicemail. I texted, "Sweetheart, I'm thirsty." "The nurse says I need help sitting up." 2 hours later came her reply, "Sorry, Mom, I'm so busy. I'll ask Mark to call you. Love you." But Mark never came. In the following days, only the beeping of monitors and nurses' footsteps echoed through the room. I learned to tell time by the smell of hospital food, the watery soup at noon, the tea and cookies at night. On the 5th day, I texted Brian, "Son, why haven't you come to visit me?" He replied, "Plane tickets are too expensive, Mom, but I'm sending you positive energy." That was all I heard from my 4 children. On the 7th day, the head nurse, a young woman named Hannah, walked in while I was struggling to brush my hair. She stopped, looked at me, and gently approached. "Let me help you," she said softly, untangling my silver hair with care. Then she asked in a low voice, "Mrs. Kimberly, may I ask, do you have family?" That question hurt more than the incision. I froze. "Of course," I whispered. "I have 4 children." She stayed quiet, offering a sad smile as she adjusted my pillow. "If you need anything, just ring the bell. I'll come." And she always did. It was Hannah who held my hand when the physical therapist helped me stand for the first time, when the pain nearly made me faint. She brought me a small piece of cake on the day I started walking again. From my children, I received only short texts. "You okay, Mom? Get well soon." 15 days passed. The doctor came in smiling. "Congratulations, Mrs. Kimberly. You've recovered. You can go home. Call your family to pick you up." My heart jumped. They'll come now, I thought. But when I called Richard, voicemail. Lucy, voicemail. Mark, unreachable. Brian, the phone rang endlessly. No answer. The doctor came back and asked, "Have they arrived?" I replied softly. "They're busy, but it's fine. I can manage." Hannah's sympathetic eyes made my throat tighten. She helped me pack my bag and put on a clean coat. "Would you like me to call a taxi for you?" she asked. "No, thank you. I know how to use the app. I'll call an Uber." And so I left the hospital on my own, hands gripping the walker, my hip still aching. The Uber driver, a young man about my grandson's age, rushed to open the door. "Oh, ma'am, let me help you." He placed my suitcase in the trunk and helped me sit gently. "Do you live alone?" he asked. "I have 4 children," I replied. The words tasted bitter, like a cruel joke. When we reached my house, everything was silent. He helped me out and carried my suitcase to the door. "Are you sure you'll be okay?" "I'll be fine, thank you." I smiled faintly and closed the door. The musty smell of an empty house greeted me. I turned on the lights. The glow fell on the picture frames: Richard, Lucy, Mark, and Brian, smiling at graduations, Christmas, birthdays. I shuffled into the kitchen and opened the fridge. Inside were half a bottle of water, a dried lemon, and an open jar of butter. In that moment, the abandonment became painfully clear. It wasn't just that they hadn't come to the hospital, they hadn't even thought about what their mother would eat when she came home. I sat at the table where roasted chicken once filled the air, my heart cold. The tears were gone, replaced by a rising fury. They didn't think I was worth caring for, but they still thought I was worth borrowing from. I went to my room, opened a drawer. Albert's black notebook was still there, the one where I recorded everything. I flipped it open. Rent from. Apartment number 2, where Lucy's son lived, was 3 months late. "Mom, hold on to it for me. My clinic is slow right now," Lucy had said. There was also the money I'd lent Richard to fix his roof and buy a car 6 months with no repayment. Mark was still under my health insurance because his own plan was too expensive. And Brian, well, I still sent him money every month, even though he was 35. They hadn't abandoned me because they were busy. They abandoned me because I was no longer useful. I was just a silent ATM. My phone vibrated. Lucy was calling. I answered, my voice no longer trembling but calm, managerial. "Mom, I'm so sorry. Richard said you were discharged. Why didn't you call? I'll come get you." "No need," I replied quietly. "I came home by Uber." "Oh my God, that's dangerous. Have you eaten?" "I'm home, but the fridge is empty. I swear I'll go grocery shopping tomorrow. Don't worry." "No need, Lucy. By the way, tell Richard to pay back the 6-month debt and make sure your son pays the rent before noon tomorrow." "Mom, what's going on? From now on, things will be different." "I'm not a bank anymore." I hung up. My hands were shaking not from weakness, but from the strength returning to them. I looked at the black notebook. 15 days of loneliness had taught me more than 70 years of giving ever did. If you're not someone's priority, make yourself your own center. I picked up the phone not to call my children, but my late husband's lawyer. "Hello, Mr. Miller. This is Kimberly. I need to see you urgently. I want to review some property papers and one more thing. I looked at the photos on the shelf. I want to change my will. That first night home was long. My hip throbbed, but the cold from the empty fridge was what kept me awake. Abandonment has the bitter taste of spoiled food. When the pale dawn broke, my decision was made. The fragile woman from yesterday had stayed in that Uber. The woman who woke up today had a stitched hip and a to-do list. It took me 20 minutes to walk from the bedroom to the kitchen with my walker. The pain burned, but anger fueled me. I opened the fridge, looked at the dried lemon, and said to myself, if I can order an Uber, I can order coffee. I unlocked my phone and ordered bread, milk, cheese, coffee, and a jar of the finest strawberry jam, because if I was going to live alone, I'd live with dignity. While waiting for the delivery, I returned to my desk, opened the black notebook, my faithful companion through the years. I could almost hear Albert's voice in my mind. "Kimberly, you're not just keeping records, you're running your life." I stared at the notebook as if looking into a mirror. It was time to examine gratitude, or rather, ingratitude. I turned to Richard's page, my eldest, the engineer, my pride, the man who built skyscrapers but couldn't keep a promise. The note from 6 months ago was still there. Loan to Richard to repair rental roof, $6,000. "Mom, I'll pay you next month once I close this deal." That next month never came. I even doubted the roof had ever been fixed. Next page. Lucy, the gentle dentist I was once so proud of. Her name was on the rental contract for the apartment her son Lucas lived in. The boy attended a private college but seemed to think rent was optional, 3 months unpaid. "Mom, just hold it for me. My clinic is slow." So slow that her smiling face still showed up on social media, drinking champagne on a weekend yacht in Florida. Maybe her clinic struggled, but her boat certainly didn't. Next page. Mark, the consultant, an expert at doing nothing. His entry was different, not debt, but health insurance. The best, most expensive plan, the one I'd kept since Albert got sick. Mark, 45 years old, was still listed as my dependent. I paid $500 a month so he could have full coverage. "My company's plan is terrible, Mom." What company? No one knew. Finally, Brian, the youngest, the one I could never be firm with. There was no note for him. Just the bank statements showing an automatic transfer every first day of the month. Tuition support. Brian was 35. If he were still studying, he'd have a PhD by now, but the only thing he studied was how fast money hit his account. I added it all up: Richard's debt, Lucas's rent, Mark's insurance, Brian's allowance, almost $10,000 a month. They drained me as if I were a bottomless well. But now the well had run dry. I needed more than numbers. I needed the law. I called Albert's old lawyer, Mr. Miller. "Hello, this is Kimberly, Albert's widow. I need you to come right away. It's urgent." He sounded concerned. "Mrs. Kimberly, what's happened? You sound different." "I just had hip surgery and just woke up in every sense of the word." He understood instantly. "I'll bring all the property files. I'll be there in an hour." An hour was enough to shower, put on clean clothes, eat some bread with jam, and gather my resolve. When the doorbell rang, I was already seated in my armchair, the black notebook open neatly on the table. The pain was still there, but I was stronger than it. Mr. Miller stepped in, elegant in his suit, the faint scent of aftershave following him. "You look pale," he said. "That's just the anesthesia fading," I replied. Clarity is finally setting in. I invited him to sit, poured coffee, and told him everything: the hospital, the Uber ride, the empty fridge. He listened silently, his expression growing more serious. When I finished, he didn't offer clichés like, "Calm down, they're your children." He simply adjusted his glasses. "Albert always knew you were the pillar of the family. He prepared for this." "What do you mean?" You remember what Albert did besides running the workshop?" "He used to scout for land." "I thought he was crazy." "Exactly. He was good at it." Mr. Miller pulled an old map and a freshly printed document from his briefcase. "I updated this after your call this morning. Albert bought that land back in the 80s, when it was undeveloped. Now it's part of the city center. The zoning just changed." Your land is no longer residential. My heart pounded. Then what is it now? A Class A commercial zone, extremely valuable. Mrs. Kimberly, those small apartments aren't just rental units. That land is worth more than an entire new building. He handed me the appraisal report. The number was so large I nearly fell off my chair. My God, I gasped. Albert really did see ahead. He smiled. He left me an envelope labeled, "Deliver to Kimberly only if the children forget who she is. Seems that time has come." I laughed, a dry, rasping sound. I was sitting on a fortune, while my children left me thirsty in a hospital bed. The irony could cut glass. This was the hidden asset I had more than the black notebook. It was Albert's legacy. I took a deep breath. From today, you'll be my legal representative. Anyone who wants to talk to me must go through my lawyer. He nodded. It'll be an honor, Mrs. Kimberly. And the will dividing everything equally? Tear it up, Mr. Miller. Today we'll write a new one based on justice, not blood. But keep the old one handy. It might still serve its purpose. He looked at me with admiration. He no longer saw a fragile old woman but a strategist. When he left, I sat quietly, looking around the room. The old furniture Albert had bought, the smiling photos of my children, all of it looked like masks now. I remembered the years of condescension. Richard sitting in my kitchen, talking about investments, while borrowing money for his car. Lucy giving me face cream, saying, "Mom, you have to take care of yourself," as if a jar of lotion could erase the lines her neglect had drawn. Mark laughing on Christmas, telling me I didn't understand technology, though he knew exactly how to use my insurance. And Brian always saying, "You're the only one who understands me." For him, understand meant fund. They had turned me into a household appliance, a fridge, a stove, something that served. When I needed care, they disappeared. But I didn't break. I was being reborn. I looked in the mirror and saw a 72-year-old woman, silver-haired, wrinkled, wearing a robe. That's the Kimberly the world saw. But inside was the woman who once ran Albert's workshop accounts better than any accountant, and the woman who had just discovered she was a millionaire. From the outside, people saw a fragile old woman recently out of surgery, abandoned by her children. The truth was that inside me lived a clear-headed executive with pain in my hip, but holding a black notebook and an appraisal document worth a fortune. The phone rang. Lucy's name appeared on the screen. I took a deep breath. The role of the sweet mother was over. "Hello," I said calmly. "Mom, I've been thinking about you all day. I'm sorry I couldn't come this morning. The clinic's been so busy. I'm buying you some things. Are you eating okay? Taking your meds?" Her voice was dripping with sugar, the kind that comes from guilt without remorse. "I already ordered food through the app, and I've been taking my medicine." Silence on the other end. She was probably waiting for me to cry. "Oh, that's great, but I'm still getting some fruit." "You're so quiet, Mom. Are you in pain?" "No. I'm thinking, Lucy. Something I haven't truly done in years." "Don't overthink, Mom. We love you. It's just been a hard time for everyone." "I understand. Love is strange, isn't it?" I paused. "By the way, Lucy, if you're at the store, take your checkbook." "Checkbook? For what?" "To pay the 3 months of back rent Lucas owes, including the late fees, 90 days total. If I don't receive payment by noon tomorrow, the eviction notice goes out Monday." I heard her breath catch. "Mom, what are you talking about? Lucas is your grandson. Are you okay? Is the anesthesia still wearing off?" "No, Lucy. Quite the opposite. I feel completely lucid." My voice stayed calm. And tell your brothers Richard, Mark, and Brian to come over for dinner this Sunday. Topic: Family and finances. Attendance mandatory. Mom, you can't even walk yet. I'll manage, Lucy. I always have. Now I need to rest before you arrive. With the money. I hung up and leaned back in my chair. My heart was pounding not from fear, but from adrenaline. The first step of my plan was complete. I was no longer managing pocket change. I was managing the entire estate Albert left. I opened the black notebook to a new page and wrote the title, Sunday Dinner. Under it, I drew 3 columns. Richard, debt notice. Mark, insurance cancellation. Brian, allowance termination. They thought I was a lonely, dying old woman. But the woman they left behind in the hospital was already gone. The one waiting for them now with a walker and a cold smile was the manager ready to balance the books. And their accounts were deep in the red. After hanging up, the house fell silent. But it wasn't the sterile silence of a hospital where one is abandoned. It was the calm before a storm, the kind of stillness where you lock your doors, hold a candle, and wait for the thunder to strike. My leg still hurt. The incision burned at times, but I remembered Mr. Miller's advice: take it slow, one step at a time precisely. I pushed the walker toward the kitchen, poured a glass of water, swallowed my pain pills, and stood there looking out. The window at the yard where my children once played, scraped their knees, and ran to me for comfort. Now, I was tending a wound of my own one that cut much deeper. Not 20 minutes later, the doorbell rang frantically, as if the house were on fire. It wasn't a chime, it was pounding on the button. I didn't rush. Every step with the walker was a reminder. I moved at my own pace now. When I opened the door, Lucy stood there, her face flushed, car keys trembling in her hand, 2 grocery bags at her feet like a hurried offering. "Mom, what took you so long? I thought you'd fallen." She gasped, out of breath. I looked over my reading glasses. "I don't fall anymore, Lucy. Come in." She stormed inside, tossing her purse on the couch. "Mom, what's going on? What's this about calling Mr. Miller? Eviction papers? Are you hallucinating? It's probably the pain meds. I'm calling the doctor." Her phone was already in hand, ready to fix her. Crazy mother. "Sit down, Lucy." My tone was so even it made her freeze. Her fingers stopped midair. "What?" I said. "Sit down." I pointed to the dining chair, the same one she used to sit in to do her homework. She stared at me, startled, but obeyed. Instinct, the child's obedience, was still there, buried under pride. I took my seat at the head of the table, my familiar place, and set the black notebook between us. "I'm not hallucinating, Lucy. My mind has never been clearer." I opened the book. Rental property, page 2, Lucas. Rent $800, due on the 5th of every month. What's today's date? Oh yes, 3 months late. 3 months of you saying, "Hold it for me, the clinic's been slow." "But Mom, it's Lucas, your grandson. College is expensive." "I understand. I raised 4 kids myself. And your current balance, with interest and penalties calculated by Mr. Miller, comes to $4,220. Her eyes widened. $4,000? That's insane. How are you even calculating this? I'm not. The contract is, remember? You signed as guarantor for Lucas. The agreement states that after 60 days of delay, there's a 20% penalty plus 1% daily interest. I never enforced it before, but now I'm following my lawyer's advice to be more professional. Lucy began to cry, the second act of the same old play. Act 1 was anger, Act 2, pity. "Mom, how could you do this? I'm your only daughter. You're isolating yourself. You're pushing your family away. Those tears that used to break my heart now looked like dirty water. Talking about distance, Lucy. I spent 15 days in the hospital. I called. I texted. You sent one message, I'm too busy. Meanwhile, that same weekend, you were on a yacht in Florida. A nurse, a total stranger, asked if I had family. What was I supposed to say? Yes, but they're out boating. Her tears stopped instantly. Her face went pale. How do you know that? The world's pretty open these days, sweetheart. I may not be tech-savvy, but I can read when someone tags me in a photo. Your friend Sonia seems to adore me. Lucy was speechless. She wasn't caught for neglect, she was caught for lying. I'm not evicting Lucas, at least not today. I just want what's mine. Did you bring your checkbook? Lucy glared at me, then pulled it out. Her hand shook as she wrote. You'll regret this, Mom. You'll be lonelier than ever. She ripped the check and threw it hard on the table. I've already been lonely for 15 days, Lucy. The difference is, now I'm lonely with $4,000 in my account. Now go. And tell your brothers Sunday, 7 p.m., family dinner. Bring Lucas. I want to see him. Lucy stood, grabbed her purse, leaving the grocery bags behind. The door slammed so hard the photo frames rattled. I picked up the check and ran my Brad. Hand over the paper, the first payment. Before I could put it away, the phone rang again. Richard's name lit up. I smiled and let it go to voicemail. A few minutes later, Mark called. I let that one ring too. The sound echoed through the house, the sound of panic. They were confused because the old script visit sick mom, say a few kind words, get forgiven, had just collapsed. But I knew exactly what I was doing. My audit wasn't finished. Lucy was just the opening act. I called Mr. Miller. Mr. Miller, I've received Lucy's check. Let's move to the next step. How did she react? As expected, called me crazy, cruel, said I'd die alone. The usual. Anything else I can do? Yes. Call the insurance company and remove Mark as a dependent. 45 years old, he can handle himself. There was a pause, then respect in his tone. Right away, ma'am. Anything else? The automatic transfer to Brian. I want it stopped today. You can. Do that directly from your banking app. Perfect. Thank you. I'll tell you how Sunday dinner goes. I opened the banking app. The small letters, the slow screen, but I remembered every step. I was the one who set that transfer 5 years ago, and now 3 taps canceled it. Done. Brian's monthly allowance disappeared. Not long after, Mark called. Mom, what the hell is going on? His voice burned with the anger I wished he'd shown when I was lying in that hospital. Good afternoon, Mark. What's wrong? My health plan. I tried to book an appointment, and they said it's been canceled. Did you forget to pay? No, I didn't forget. I paid my part and cut yours. Cut mine? You can't do that. I need insurance. What if I get sick? Good question, Mark. I got sick. I had hip surgery. I needed help. Where were you? He stammered. I was working out of town. No signal. I was planning to visit. Don't plan. Use that time to find a plan that fits your income. You're a successful consultant, right? Then consult for yourself. The plan I was paying for both of us was too expensive. Lucy called me. Are you punishing us? Just because we're busy? You're being selfish. No, Mark. I call it balancing the books. From now on, everyone handles their own account. And Sunday, 7 p.m. Dinner at my house. I'd like to talk about the insurance I've paid for you over the past 10 years. Maybe you'll want to reimburse me. I hung up. My hands no longer trembled. The house seemed to hum with tension. I could imagine their group chat probably called "Mom's Lost It," but I felt lighter. The ache in my hip was almost gone. The last to call was Brian, but not until the next day, the first of the month, when his usual deposit didn't appear. His voice was different this time. Unlike Mark's anger or Lucy's screaming, Brian's tone was sweet, feigned concern. "Hey, Mom. Hi, my lovely mother. Lucy said you're home. Thank God, I've been praying. Good afternoon, Brian. You sound tired, Mom. Are you still in pain?" "Less than yesterday," I said flatly. "That's good." Weird thing. I checked my account this morning, and the deposit you send every month isn't there. Must be a bank error. Can you call them for me?" "No need, Brian. The system's working fine." "It is? What do you mean?" "Because I'm the system." And I shut it down. Silence. I could hear his heavy breathing. Shut down my support? Mom, why?" "What did I do?" "Do? More like didn't do. Your brother claimed no signal. Your sister was busy yachting. And you?" "Oh, right, you sent positive energy. But Mom, I live off that money. Rent, food. What am I supposed to do?" "Brian, you're 35. I've supported you since the day you were born. You don't study, you don't work, you just live off me. Let's call it what it is, an allowance. And it's over. Time for you to learn to live." I learned to call an Uber alone when my hip hurt and I was abandoned for 15 days. I'm sure my healthy son can learn to fill out a job application. Brian began to cry, a child's sob in a grown man's voice. "Mom, you're killing me. You want me to starve?" "No, I want you to work." "And Sunday, 7 p.m., dinner here. If you want to come, buy your own bus ticket." I hung up. In that moment, the balance of power shifted. Their anger turned to fear. Their source of income had closed. And that's when Richard, the engineer, the eldest, finally realized the real storm was coming. He was the only one I hadn't touched yet, though he still owed me $6,000. The phone rang. It was him. This time, I answered. "Mom, what are you doing? Are you trying to destroy this family?" Lucy's blood pressure spiked, Mark's panicking without insurance, and Brian's crying, saying you want him to die. "What's your plan?" His tone was commanding. "Richard," I said slowly, "I'm glad you finally cared enough to call. Took you 3 days. You're attacking everyone." "No, I'm defending myself. I waited 15 days in the hospital, and none of you showed up. Today, all 4 of you called within 3 hours. Why? Because the money stopped. The privileges ended. You're not worried about me. You're worried the cash cow stopped giving milk." Silence. I knew I'd hit the nerve. Richard was smart and calculating. He knew anger wouldn't work. "Mom," his voice softened, "this is about money, right? I'll pay you back. I know I owe you $6,000. I'll give it to you next week." $6,000, Richard? For fixing the roof on apartment number 1? Funny, I had someone check last week. They said that roof's never been fixed. He hesitated. "Mom, I can explain. I don't need explanations. I need payment. But never mind, we'll talk later. Just remember Sunday, 7 p.m., be here with your siblings. We have plenty to discuss." "Mom, are you cutting us out of the will?" I laughed. "Cut you out of the will?" "Richard, what do you think I've been living on? You think I survive on a pension and a few rent checks from those old buildings?" He paused. "This Sunday, you'll find out what those old buildings are really worth. And you'll find out what your mother is worth." "Mom, wait. Bring your calculator. I'll be serving roasted chicken with potatoes, your favorite." I hung up. The house fell quiet again, but it was a powerful quiet. They had no idea what was coming. They didn't know about Mr. Miller, the property's true value, or my plan. They thought Sunday dinner was an intervention for their unstable mother after surgery. They didn't know it would be the first board meeting of a new empire where the rules had changed forever. Sunday arrived under an ironically clear blue sky. I moved slowly through the morning. The pain in my hip reminded me of the hospital days, but it no longer carried sadness. It had become motivation. Every step with the walker brought me closer to freedom. I didn't ask for help. I called the bakery and ordered bread, cheese, and a whole roasted chicken with potatoes. It was the same meal I used to spend hours preparing for them. Today, I bought it ready-made. Turns out, my time was far more valuable. The smell of garlic and rosemary drifted through the house, a sweet trap of memory. They would recognize the scent of the mother they once exploited, but tonight they would face the woman they themselves had created. By 6 p.m., I was ready. I showered, put on the navy blue dress, Albert once said, matched my eyes, brushed my silver hair, and put on a soft red lipstick. I didn't want to look like a patient. I wanted to look like the owner of this house, and of everything in it. I sat at the head of the dining table. The table was neatly set, not with the holiday china, but with the everyday plates. A sign this wasn't a celebration, but a confrontation. The black notebook lay beside me like a silent judge. The doorbell rang precisely at 7 p.m. Lucy walked in, with Lucas behind her. At least the boy still had some shame, eyes downcast. Lucy, however, looked at me as if she could tear me apart. "Hi, Mom," she said stiffly. Lucas muttered, "Hi, Grandma." "Come in," I said calmly. "We'll wait for your siblings." "I'm your daughter, not your sibling," Lucy snapped. "Did you forget?" Before I could answer, the bell rang again. Mark stepped in. He looked like he had aged 10 years in just a few days. Hollow cheeks, dark circles, probably from worrying about losing his insurance. "Mom," he said quietly, avoiding eye contact. They all stood there, no one daring to sit. The room felt heavy, the smell of roasted chicken almost oppressive to them. Richard and Brian arrived together. Richard, still in his suit, carried a briefcase like he was heading to a corporate meeting. Brian, the youngest, looked thin and pale, probably hadn't eaten in 2 days. All 4 were there. 4 children, 4 wounds. As usual, Richard stepped forward first. "Mom," he began in his commanding tone, "let's end this. You're angry. We get it. We're sorry. Everyone made mistakes. Let's just move on, okay?" I laughed, a dry sound that made them all turn. "Normal, Richard? Normal like when I was the bank? Normal like when I was the maid? Normal like when I lay in the hospital for 15 days and the nurse had to ask if I even had a family?" Lucy stepped forward, face twisted, voice trembling. "Mom, you're not well. We can see that. So, we talked and decided what's best for you." "Decided?" I raised an eyebrow. "Yes, Mom. You're confused. The surgery, the medication, they've made you lose your grip. You're attacking your own red children. You're delusional." The word hung in the air like a blade. "Delusional," I repeated, tasting its bitterness. "It's all for your own good," Mark cut in. "We can't let you live alone like this. You're making terrible choices, canceling my insurance. Do you know I nearly had a heart attack?" Lucy looked into it, Richard said, opening his briefcase and pulling out a glossy brochure. "There's a wonderful nursing home just outside the city, Autumn Haven. They've got a heated pool, physical therapy, 24-hour care." Lucy handed me the paper. Look, Mom, it's beautiful. Green, peaceful. They handle everything, even your finances. They'll manage your pension, pay your bills, you won't have to worry about a thing. Her voice was honey sweet, but the stench of manipulation was obvious. They hadn't come to apologize. They had come to strip me of control, to lock me away in a luxury retirement home and seize the properties they dismissed as old houses. It was Brian who broke the script. He dropped to his knees, crying, "Mom, please, I'm sorry. I'm worthless. I abandoned you. I was wrong. But don't cut me off. I'm starving. I haven't eaten since yesterday. I'll stay with you, take care of you, clean, do everything. Don't let me die." Quite the performance, but I saw Richard give him a subtle nod, signaling him to keep going. Did they think I was blind? That they were directing this little play? I pulled my hand away from Brian's tear-soaked grip. "Stand up! You're dirtying the floor!" I looked down at my 35-year-old son and said slowly, "You're hungry?" "I'm 72, fresh out of hip surgery, and I've done more this week than you've done in your whole life." I looked around at the four of them, faces full of greed, resentment, and deceit. A nursing home? Declaring me incompetent? You'll soon see who's really lost their absolute mind. This is your plan, isn't it? Because of Mom, right? Lucy shouted. "You can't handle money anymore. You're tearing this family apart." "Money?" I let out a cold laugh. "Funny. All your lives, you thought I had nothing. That I lived off a few spare dollars from those old houses. You drained every penny, thinking the well was endless, but you never imagined the day it would run dry." "Mom." "Enough," Richard interrupted impatiently. "Let's be reasonable. How much do you want? We'll pay you back. I'll get a bank loan to repay the $6,000. Lucy already paid her son's rent. Mark will have his insurance again. And Brian, well, we'll send you extra money every month so you won't have to worry. Just sign over the power of attorney so we can manage the properties. In your condition, you can't handle this yourself." Right then, the doorbell rang. The room went still. "No one else is coming," Mark muttered. "Oh, yes, there is," I replied. I pressed the intercom. "Come in, Mr. Miller." All four froze their faces, draining from red with anger to white with fear. Mr. Miller wasn't just any lawyer. He had managed all of Albert's assets, my late husband, whom they hadn't seen in 20 years. When he entered, dressed in a black suit and carrying a heavy leather briefcase, the room shifted from a family quarrel to a courtroom. "Mr. Miller," Richard stammered. "What are you doing here?" "Good evening, Richard, Lucy, Mark, and Brian," he said evenly, his tone cool. "Mrs. Kimberly invited me. She mentioned you had an interesting proposal involving a nursing home and a power of attorney. I'm here as her legal representative." Lucy stepped back. "Legal representative?" "Precisely," he said. "Please, everyone, sit down." His voice alone was enough to make them obey. The lions, ready to devour me now, sat quietly, like children caught misbehaving. "Mrs. Kimberly," he said, "would you like to begin?" "Thank you. I will." I set the black notebook on the table. "You think I'm confused, incapable of managing my affairs? Let's test that, shall we?" Page by page, I read aloud every debt recorded there: Richard's unpaid loan, Lucy's months of rent, the years I paid Mark's insurance, and the allowance that had kept Brian afloat. With each number I mentioned, their faces fell a little more. "You've treated me like a broken ATM. You abandoned me in the hospital because I stopped paying and started needing help. You didn't come to apologize, you came to take what's left." "Take what, Mom?" Richard shouted, standing up. "Those old wrecked houses? You're wasting money on lawyers." "You're old," Alone, you don't even know what you're doing." "You're wrong," I said calmly, my voice sharp enough to cut glass. "Mr. Miller, please." He opened his briefcase, the metallic click echoing like thunder. Old, yes. Alone, perhaps. But poor? Absolutely not. He laid out a zoning map and a thick stack of documents. "You keep calling your mother's properties old houses, but that term is outdated. The land your father, Mr. Albert, bought in the 80s is no longer suburban. The city expanded. It's now part of the new commercial district." Richard, the engineer, understood first. His face went pale. "No, that's impossible." "Oh, it's possible," Mr. Miller said. "The land value there now exceeds that of your beachfront penthouse." I looked at all four, sitting in stunned silence. "Mr. Miller and I have been working together for 3 weeks, and we've received 3 formal offers." Lucy stopped crying immediately. "Offers? How much?" "One company wants to build a shopping center, another a hotel, and the third a high-end office complex." "How much, Mom?" Mark yelled. Mr. Miller opened the first envelope and unfolded a letter. The room went dead silent. 4 jaws dropped, faces drained of blood. Lucy covered her mouth, Mark spilled his water, Brian trembled, and Richard froze in place. $20 million, Lucy whispered. "That's impossible," Richard roared. "This is a scam." "No, Richard," Mr. Miller said. "That's just the lowest offer. The other 2 are much higher. And your mother, the woman you planned to put in a nursing home, is now one of the wealthiest women in this area." The silence was so thick I could hear a pin drop. The smell of roasted chicken now hung like ashes. Lucy was the first to change expression from anger to greed. "Mom," she cried, her tone suddenly soft. "Oh my God, you're a millionaire. That means we're rich." She rushed forward to hug me, tears streaming down. I raised my hand, signaling her to stop. "No." My voice was ice. "Yes, I'm rich. But we are not. You have nothing. But that's inheritance." "Mom!" Mark shouted. "Dad left it for all of us, 4 equal shares. That's the law." "Let's talk about the will, shall we, Mr. Miller?" He nodded. "According to Mr. Albert's will, all assets were left entirely to Mrs. Kimberly. She once intended to divide them equally among the 4 of you. But after being abandoned for 15 days in the hospital, and after tonight's little family meeting suggesting a nursing home, she instructed me to draft a new will that reflects the current reality." The silence turned into panic. "Mom, you can't," Brian cried, dropping to his knees again. "Mom, we love you." "No, Brian, you don't love me. You love what I have. And now you know how much that is." I stood up. The pain in my hip flared, but my anger held me firm. "Those who only value the well when they're thirsty don't deserve water, they deserve the desert." I looked at their pale faces. "You treated me like nothing, called me old, confused. Planned to lock me away all because I needed you once, and in just 15 days, you've lost $20 million. Mom, we were wrong," Lucy pleaded. "Please forgive us. We'll do anything." "I know. You'll do anything as long as there's money." "So what are you going to do now?" Richard asked weakly. "Now?" I looked at the untouched chicken on the table. "Now, I set new rules. Mr. Miller is my sole representative. All debts will be repaid with interest, all allowances are terminated, and the new will be a masterpiece based on merit. As of now, all your scores are negative." I pointed to the door. "Dinner is served, but you're no longer my guests. Get out." No one moved. "Out," I shouted. They stood up unsteadily. Lucy was screaming through tears, Mark looked like he was about to throw up, and Brian shuffled like a corpse. Richard was the last one to move. He stopped at the doorway and glared at me. "You'll regret this," he said. "You'll die alone." I smiled, my voice soft as the wind. Being alone is still better than being surrounded by vultures. I've been lonely before, Richard, and I've learned to like that silence. At least I'm the most honest person I know. I slammed the door in his face. My whole body trembled, adrenaline rushing so fast I had to sit down. Mr. Miller handed me a glass of water. "They're worse than I imagined, Mrs. Kimberly." "No, Mr. Miller, they're just the result of what I created. And now, I'll be the one to fix it." I took a deep breath and looked at the dining table, still full, the roasted chicken golden and steaming. I picked up my phone and called Nurse Hannah, the one who had asked me in the hospital if I had any family. "Hannah, it's me, Kimberly. Have you had dinner?" "Not yet." "Good. Bring your husband and kids over. I've got roasted chicken and far too much food. I'd love some company tonight." I hung up and looked at Mr. Miller. "What will you do with all that money, Kimberly?" "First, I'll hire the best physical therapy team in the country. I'll walk without a walker before Christmas, and after that," I smiled the first genuine smile since Albert died, "I'll buy a new apartment, far away from here. And those 4 children will have to watch their confused mother live the happiest days of her life." My feast of justice had just begun, and that was only the appetizer. That night, I slept deeply. Not from pain, but from exhaustion. It was my first truly peaceful sleep in 20 years. The next morning, when the adrenaline faded, the house was quiet. The leftover scent of roasted chicken had turned sour, like the trace of a family that once was. The first thing I did was open all the windows to let fresh air sweep in, carrying away the staleness and the breath of ingratitude. Then the phone rang, marking the start of a new reality. "Hannah, it's me. Thank you for last night. I was so happy your family came over. Dinner was wonderful." She, her husband, and their 2 little ones had joined me, finishing the chicken and potatoes. Their laughter filled the table. When the boy handed me his messy crayon drawing, I understood the house had never been cursed. It had just been filled with the wrong people. "Can you do me a favor?" I asked. "Find me the best physical therapist in town. Money's no issue." 2 days later, a man named David arrived. He had strong hands and a kind smile. He didn't see me as a fragile old woman, but as an athlete preparing for a comeback. "Let's go, Mrs. Kimberly. Pain is your friend. It shows you where you need to get stronger." While I strained to lift my leg, the phone wouldn't stop ringing. My children, after the shock, they had moved into the negotiation phase. But they didn't call me, they called Mr. Miller. "They're desperate, Mrs. Kimberly," he said during one of our daily calls. Today, Richard came to my office with a lawyer. "And what does he want?" I asked, catching my breath between exercises. "He threatened to sue you, demanded a mental competency evaluation, claimed I was manipulating an elderly woman. And what did you say?" I asked if elderly was the right word for someone who uncovered a $6,000 fraud and currently holds 3 multi-million-dollar offers. Then I showed him the mental assessment I arranged for you last week. The results stated you're sharper than the 2 of us combined. His lawyer advised him to withdraw. I laughed. Richard never learned how to lose, and certainly not how to repay. I gave him 48 hours to return the money with interest. "It hit your account 10 minutes ago. That was my new reality. Justice was no longer a hope, but a service I could afford." Lucy and Mark chose another path, defamation. They went to my church, to my neighbors, and told everyone, Mom's gone crazy, got rich, and abandoned us. Now her lawyer controls everything. But the lesson they learned was bitter. Those who sow wind reap the storm. My neighbor of 30 years, Mrs. Marley, called me. "Kimberly, I can't believe it. Lucy just came here crying, saying you kicked her out." I replied, "Marley, I saw her take an Uber from the hospital, then post pictures from a yacht. If anyone knows what abandonment feels like, it sure isn't her." Then I hung up. As for Mark, the so-called consultant, he was spotted for the first time in his life waiting for the bus. Without insurance, he learned what a medical bill looked like. Without the car that was always a lie, he learned what public transportation felt like. They tried to stain my name, but I had 15 days of hospital records showing no one came to see me. The neighborhood once calling me the mother of the PhDs now saw me as the woman who stood up for herself. Poetic justice. The one who learned the hardest lesson was Brian. He tried to play the emotional card, knowing it was my only weakness. A week after that dinner, the gate guard called. "Mrs. Kimberly, there's a man outside saying he's your son. He looks bad, crying nonstop, says he has a letter for you." My heart clenched. "Don't let him up, Jack. But get the letter for me." The paper was crumpled and damp, whether from rain or tears, I couldn't tell. The shaky handwriting read, "Mom, I'm wandering the streets. I'm hungry, cold, dying. I don't need money. I just want a hug. I'm sorry. Your son, Brian." A month ago, those words would have broken me. I would have rushed down the stairs, even with my aching hip. But I wasn't that woman anymore. I could see the manipulation clearly. He didn't want Mom, he wanted what Mom could give. Yet still, I was his mother. I couldn't let him starve. I called Mr. Miller. "Brian's outside, looks homeless." "What do you want me to do, Kimberly?" "I won't give him money, but I won't let him freeze either." "Do you know a rehab center for gambling addicts and the lazy?" "Yes," he said, "and they have a work program." "Good. Find him a place. A one-way ticket to the rehab center outside the city, then a job on a farm housing, food, and work. If he refuses, give him $500 for a week's worth of meals, and that's it. His last chance." Brian took the bus ticket. The lesson for him was simple. People only change when staying the same becomes more painful than moving forward. 3 months later, the payment from the land sale hit my account. The amount was so large, I had to sit down. I looked at the bank statement and laughed. Not long ago, I worried about affording an Uber ride home. Now I could buy an apartment on the moon if I wanted, but I preferred to keep my feet on the ground. Mr. Miller asked, "So, what's next? Paris, Rome, or a world cruise?" "No," I said. "First, I'm going back to where it all began and where it all ended." I returned to the hospital not as a patient, but as a benefactor. I met with the board. The doctor who had signed my discharge papers nearly fell out of his chair when he saw me walking steadily, without a walker, with Mr. Miller by my side. "Doctor," I said, "my surgery was a success, but the recovery wasn't not because of your team, but because of my family." I presented my idea. I didn't want to donate equipment. I wanted to give something rarer dignity. A week later, the Albert and Kimberly Foundation was born. Our first project was called the Dignity Wing. It wasn't luxurious, it was a place for those who needed care and compassion. I used the very money my children had once coveted to build what they never gave me: kindness. I appointed Nurse Hannah as director, leading a team I called the Guardians. Their mission was simple: find every elderly patient left alone in a hospital bed just like I once was. None of them would ever have to stare at an empty chair again. The guardians would read to them, hold their hands, brush their hair, call their families, and ask one direct question. Do you realize that abandoning an elderly person is a crime? The foundation funded lawyers, social workers, and extra therapists. The impact on the hospital was profound. Nurses like Hannah, who once felt helpless, now had an army behind them. The place that had been the setting of my deepest humiliation was now the symbol of my victory. Pain had become purpose. I moved out of my old house, not sold it, but donated it to the foundation. It became a transition home for seniors released from the hospital with nowhere to go until they could rebuild their lives. My new apartment was on the 10th floor. The first things I bought were a mattress soft as an embrace and a refrigerator with an ice maker on the door. From the window, I looked out over the city. From up high, all my troubles looked small. Looking back, I realized my children had unknowingly given me the greatest gift myself. For 72 years, I had only been Mom, a title I once thought meant sacrifice. I erased myself so they could shine, becoming the steps they climbed, and when they reached the top, they stomped on them. Being abandoned in that hospital wasn't an accident. It was life shaking me awake, saying, "Wake up, Kimberly, there's still time." 15 days of silence and pain taught me one truth: we teach others how they're allowed to treat us. I had taught my children that I was endless. I never said no, and they learned that lesson quickly. My journey wasn't about revenge. Revenge is a cold meal that poisons the soul. Justice, though it's a hot dish that cleanses the spirit and gives strength for tomorrow. I've learned the wisdom only pain can give. We can't change others, but we can and must change how we allow them to affect our lives. My love for my children was once a lock. When they abandoned me, they handed me the key, and I used it to set myself free. Now I'm 73. My hip is stronger than that of a 30-year-old. I take aqua fitness classes, chair the board of my own foundation, and my schedule is packed. Last week, I received a letter from the countryside. It was from Brian. He wrote that he's working on a farm at the rehab center, that he's learned how to milk cows, and that the work is hard, but he feels proud. He didn't ask for money. He simply wrote, "Thank you, Mom. I think I'm starting to understand." It was the first genuine thank you I'd received in decades. I heard Richard is under tax investigation. Turns out that $6,000 loan was just the tip of the iceberg. He's selling his beachfront condo. Lucy and Mark are still the talk of the neighborhood, the two who lost an entire fortune over 15 days of neglect. They tried to sue me, but the new will Mr. Miller drafted is airtight. Their names no longer appear in it. Everything I have left will go to the foundation. My legacy isn't for ungrateful children, it's for every forgotten soul who ever felt invisible. Today, I was invited to the grand opening of the Dignity Wing, the Albert and Kimberly Foundation. Hannah greeted me at the hospital gate. When I cut the ribbon, I didn't feel like an old woman, or even just a mother. I felt whole. A young nurse approached, eyes shining. "You're Mrs. Kimberly, right?" "Oh my God, what an honor. Your story inspires all of us." I smiled. They once left me in a silent hospital room, thinking that was the end. But they didn't know that in that very silence I was reborn. And what about you? Have you ever had to learn how to set new boundaries in your love? Share your thoughts. Maybe your story will bring comfort to someone quietly enduring the same. And if you'd like to keep walking with me through more journeys of courage, forgiveness, and human strength, stay with us, because there are many more stories yet to come.